iHealthTube, and we're visiting with Dr. Cheryl Selman. You indicated in your book, Hormone Heresy, that 50% of women by the time they're age 60 have had a hysterectomy. And you say a lot of that is not necessary, maybe as much as 90 to 95%. Could you address that, please?
Absolutely. You know, we accept hysterectomies as kind of a, a little procedure that most women go through, and yet it's a very radical intervention. The statistics indicate that, 600,000 women a year have hysterectomies, although in some instances they believe it's even higher than that. In fact, the United States probably has the highest per capita incident of hysterectomies performed. So we have women removing the uterus, their uteruses, and we need to understand something about the uterus. It is not a disposable organ. It's not something that is, it's not just about removing an organ that's not required after your childbearing years are over. The uterus actually is a very intrinsic part of the reproductive system. It supports organs, so you tend to have more prolapses when you remove it. It actually makes a hormone called prostacyclin that cannot be synthetically produced or reintroduced into the body, that looks after the heart and the blood vessels, creates a sense of well-being. So we really want to hold on to our uterus at all costs.
Because it's not a disposable organ, as you say. And we're treated as though it is.
Women are told it is. They're told they don't need it. In fact, often when you go in for a hysterectomy, the doctor will encourage you to have perfectly healthy ovaries removed while you're in there, because we're told our ovaries could be a source of ovarian cancer, even though it's a very, very small percentage of women who get ovarian cancer. So it's the actual term, which isn't very nice sounding, the actual term for removal of ovaries is called castration. So once we remove our ovaries, which of course function the entire length of our lives, creating key vital hormones for our health and well-being, once we remove those ovaries, we really face some challenges in our life. And of course, then when we have a hysterectomy, we remove the uterus, possibly remove the ovaries, and I have to say, with the hysterectomy, there's a high probability you will also have your cervix removed.
My goodness. And doesn't hysterectomy, the word, come from hysteria?
Yes.
And that's all about, as you say in your book, women's health and bodies being pathologized.
Yes, absolutely. And when we remove a uterus, and by the way, the number one reason for hysterectomies is fibroids.
Okay.
The number two hysterectomy is endometriosis. Then you may have pelvic inflammatory disease. You have a host of issues, and probably the very, very bottom would be uterine cancer.
Okay.
And when you remove a uterus, then the doctor will prescribe hormones, or more specifically will prescribe estrogen replacement therapy. So women who have a hysterectomy will be put on estrogen. Now, a couple of things we need to explain here. If the number one reason for a woman having a hysterectomy would be fibroids or endometriosis, it indicates that she has high estrogen levels, because high estrogen levels fuel the growth of fibroids and play a role in endometriosis. So when you remove the presenting symptom called, fibroids in the uterus, and then you prescribe estrogen, well, the uterus does not make estrogen. And in fact, the very condition that created this problem was from too much estrogen, and now a woman is being prescribed even more estrogen. So the condition that brought it about is still there, but now you're exacerbating some of the potential problems because you are increasing estrogen levels even further. And one other thing I want to say is that estrogen, without being balanced by progesterone, estrogen on its own stimulates estrogen-sensitive cells and tissues. So the reason why the doctors give estrogen to women with hysterectomies is because they do not have a uterus any longer, and therefore the estrogen cannot create uterine cancer, which it is known estrogen creates. So you don't have a uterus, you can create uterine cancer, but estrogen is still an estrogen. The estrogen stimulates hormone-dependent cells in the body, such as in the breast. So being put on estrogen on its own can can be a risk factor for breast cancer. And in my own professional experience, you should never be on estrogen alone, ever. With
Ever.
the uterus, without a uterus, you should never have estrogen alone. It should always be prescribed with natural progesterone, so you are actually maintaining that hormonal balance and protecting your breasts.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Selman.
You're welcome.